Kenichi, a middle-aged office drone, had his life flipped upside down when one too many energy drinks knocked him out cold at work. That dramatic collapse was the slap in the face he needed to quit his boring job and ditch city life for a peaceful farmer's existence in the countryside. But fate had other plans. While making lunch in his shabby cabin one quiet afternoon, Kenichi suddenly found himself in a mysterious, massive forest. Confused and mildly terrified, he stumbled upon a knight's skeleton, complete with a sword sticking out of its chest. As if things couldn't get weirder, Kenichi had a light bulb moment. He remembered an anime where the hero pulled up a status screen. Giving it a try, he was stunned when a glowing interface actually appeared. Surprise, he was in another world. The system was pretty handy. It let him store items and even buy food. Too bad Kenichi was flat broke. Desperate, he spotted the knight's sword, yanked it out, and traded it for some milk and bread. Feeling a little guilty, he used the rest of his trade points to buy a shovel, buried the knight with a heartfelt prayer, and pedaled off into the forest on his new bike. By nightfall, Kenichi was finally ready to enjoy a curry dinner when a pack of scary forest foxes crashed the party. Panicking, he tossed fireworks and shot at them with a slingshot until they finally ran off. Shaken but alive, he bolted out of there like his life depended on it. The next morning, Kenichi spotted a city on the horizon through a pair of binoculars. With renewed hope, he made his way there, narrowly avoiding a runaway carriage. The driver, a blonde merchant named Fu, felt bad and offered Kenichi a lift. After some casual chatter, they arrived at the city of Dea. Fu, grateful for Kenichi's help unloading goods, handed him a pouch of pepper. But there was a catch. The Spice Syndicate ran the spice game here, and carrying it was a big no-no. Fu ended up buying the pepper from Kenichi for 3 silver coins, leaving him both richer and very confused about this world's economy. At an inn, Kenichi ran into a new problem. He couldn't read or write the local language. Luckily, the innkeeper, Alia, was happy to help after Kenichi impressed her with his math skills. Thank you, basic arithmetic. He sweetened the deal with some candy and even sketched a portrait of her, earning himself a blush and some serious gratitude. The next day, Kenichi joined the Merchants Guild, groaning over the pricey registration fee but relieved when they let him pay in installments. Armed with his guild card and a new determination, he hit the market to figure out what sells and how to start making his mark in this strange, new world. Back at the inn, Kenichi decided his lumpy mattress just wasn't cutting it. Armed with determination and a hammer, he started crafting a proper bed. Alia, the innkeeper, watched from a distance, impressed by his carpentry skills and the care he put into every detail. Her attention soon drifted to the sturdy, unique clothespins he was using. Curious, she approached and asked if she could buy a few, complaining about how her flimsy ones always snapped. This gave Kenichi an idea. Why not sell these? The next day, he set up a stand at the market, showcasing his revolutionary clothespins. His neighbor, a savvy merchant named Anama, stopped by to grab a few, assuring him that there was no rule against competition buying from each other. Kenichi's clothespins were a hit. Customers flocked to his stand like moths to a flame, earning him more foot traffic and coin than he'd ever dreamed of. Even Anama thanked him for the extra business the buzz around his stand brought to her stall. By the day's end, Kenichi counted his earnings, jaw-dropping when he realized he'd made the local equivalent of over 15,000 yen. Clothespins, of all things, had turned into his golden goose. Just as Kenichi basked in his success, a tall, blond man with a sword wandered over, oozing importance. After some small talk, he asked if Kenichi had any weapons for sale. Kenichi presented a sleek blade, but the man wanted something bigger. When Kenichi showed him a broadsword, the man was dazzled until he heard the price, 1 gold piece. He hesitated, torn between his love for the sword and his tight purse strings. Before they could settle the deal, a purple-haired catgirl appeared out of nowhere and licked Kenichi's face. Startled, he fell over, leaving the blond man to explain that catfolk were common in this world. Soon, her siblings showed up, one of them snatching the cloth draped over Kenichi's stand, declaring they wanted to buy it. Though the cloth wasn't for sale, Kenichi saw a business opportunity and offered it for 9 copper pieces, even throwing in a discount. After some awkward haggling and math checks, the deal was sealed, and they left happy. The blonde man, impressed by Kenichi's honesty, finally caved and bought the broadsword. Meanwhile, across town, a maid who'd bought Kenichi's clothespins showed them to her boss, Primula, who saw their potential to make her mansion chores easier. Excited by the idea, Primula planned to buy more, and even pitched the idea of selling them herself, sensing a lucrative opportunity. That evening, Kenichi, craving a hot bath, decided to make one himself. He bought a barrel, planning to heat water over a fire, and mused that if it worked, maybe he could market it too. But the convenience of his online store left him uneasy. Where were these goods even coming from? Was there a hidden catch, like selling his soul? The next day, Kenichi returned to the market, adding shiny, fake jewelry to his stand. Margaret, the maid, showed up to buy a whopping 100 clothespins and eyed the jewelry, asking him to hold one for her. Just as he was about to pack up, the catfolk returned, sniffing around for spices. Their enthusiasm clashed with Kenichi's fear of the spice syndicate, so he declined to sell them any. Instead, he offered to share a meal outside town. That night, Kenichi, Anama, and the catfolk cooked a feast by the river. The fish, seasoned to perfection, blew everyone's minds. The catfolk loved it so much they craved alcohol, and Kenichi, feeling generous, shared a cheap bottle with them. They laughed, drank, and slept under the stars. The next morning, Kenichi returned to the inn, where Alia was visibly annoyed. She grilled him about staying out all night and wasn't buying his explanation about just hanging out with some catfolk. Noticing purple fur on his jacket, she jumped to conclusions, fuming that he'd chosen a catgirl over her. Later that day, Kenichi was setting up his shop when Margaret arrived with Primula in tow. Kenichi, distracted momentarily by Primula's beauty, quickly snapped out of it when he spotted Margaret. Realizing they were here to buy the necklace she inquired about, he retrieved it. Margaret paid up and handed it to Primula for inspection. Primula, utterly amazed, couldn't believe the necklace wasn't made of real diamonds. She asked Kenichi if he had more like it. Happy to oblige, he pulled out several pieces from his collection. Primula was so impressed both by the jewelry and Kenichi's handy item box that she decided to make a bold move. She revealed she was the daughter of the Mo Trading Company owner and invited Kenichi to meet her father. Kenichi hesitated. Big shots spelled trouble, but after hearing from Anama that her father was a well-respected man, Kenichi reluctantly agreed. He hopped into Primula's carriage, where she showed him some replica clothes pins her craftsman couldn't perfect. The clamps were tricky, and even Kenichi didn't fully understand the manufacturing process. Soon, they arrived at Primula's modest mansion. Inside, Kenichi met Mo, who wasted no time admiring the jewelry Kenichi brought. When Primula mentioned Kenichi's item box, Mo perked up. Turns out, Mo also had an item box, which he credited for his trading empire. Mo proposed Kenichi become the official supplier for his company. Kenichi, always the cautious type, figured Mo could have just resold his goods on the sly. Ma, however, explained that honesty builds trust and undercutting Kenichi wouldn't be worth the bad blood. Mo offered Kenichi 50% of the retail price. Though Kenichi could have pushed for more, he figured he was already raking in absurd profits, so he agreed. After signing the deal, Kenichi made over 1,000,000 yen in his first round of sales. Primula, smitten with his jewels, offered to buy some for herself, dropping 10 gold coins around $2 million. For the first time, Kenichi was rolling in an 8-figure bank balance. Feeling flush, Kenichi decided to fulfill his dream of a quiet forest life. He purchased a house blueprint from his store and scouted a spot in the woods. Inama thought his decision to live among wild beasts was strange, but Kenichi was determined. Armed with a weed whacker, he started clearing the area. Next came tree removal. Enter the chainsaw. After hours of labor, Kenichi had a pile of trees too large to fit in his item box. Cue more chainsawing into smaller logs, which worked like a charm. But the stubborn tree stumps presented a new challenge. Tired of manual labor, Kenichi splurged on a bulldozer, a cool 1.2 million yen. It wasn't until the purchase was complete that he realized his store didn't sell diesel. Panic set in, but Kenichi cobbled together a homemade fuel blend and tested it on a generator. Success. With the bulldozer roaring the next day, Kenichi made quick work of the stumps, enjoying every minute of it. A little later, Kenichi goes to meet Mo and Primula, hoping to sell them some salt and sugar for a nice profit. Mo tastes the sugar and loves it, but he can't buy it. Salt and sugar are controlled by the government, so buying from Kenichi would land him in serious trouble. On the bright side, the jewels Kenichi sold Mo earlier are selling like hotcakes. Mo wants more, and Kenichi sells them, earning himself 15 gold coins, about 3 million yen. Now he finally has enough to buy the log cabin he's been eyeing in his shop. A whole cabin for just 1.7 million yen. Sounds like a steal. But when Kenichi buys it, reality hits literally. Instead of a ready-made cabin, he gets buried under a pile of wooden planks and confusing instructions. It's a nightmare to figure out, but since he already paid for it, Kenichi gets to work. Luckily, the beast folk he helped earlier pass by and offer to lend a hand. With their help, Kenichi juggles running his stall and building his cabin. After weeks of work, the cabin is finally done, and Kenichi thanks the beast folk with a barbecue party. Even though the cabin is standing, Kenichi still has a lot to do: painting, setting up solar panels, and more. After another month, he finally finishes. The cabin is self-sufficient, with a fence, solar power, and even a bath, though he has to bike back and forth to fill it with water. The next morning, Kenichi visits Alia at the inn to let her know he's moving out. She's surprised but happy he accomplished his goal, even if it means she won't see him as much. The day after, Kenichi wakes up in his new cabin and decides to enjoy the great weather by taking photos of flowers. But his peaceful ride is interrupted when someone shoots an arrow at him. He crashes his bike and hides behind a tree as more arrows fly past. It turns out a group of beastfolk hunters mistook him for prey. Even when they realize he's human, they decide to attack anyway. Frustrated, Kenichi fights back with his slingshot and scares them off with fireworks and an excavator. After the chaos, Kenichi hears a wounded animal and finds a bobcat with an arrow in its leg. The poor thing growls at him but is too weak to fight as he carefully removes the arrow, disinfects the wound, and applies medicine. Knowing it won't survive alone, Kenichi takes it back to his cabin. The bobcat doesn't move much, and Kenichi worries. He tries asking the local wizard for help, but the wizard just tells him to sell the fur. Annoyed, Kenichi heads home and runs into Miley. She smells the bobcat on him and gets excited. Her people consider bobcats sacred. She follows him back to the cabin and is furious when she sees the injury, blaming the dog beastfolk. The bobcat tries licking its wound, so Kenichi puts a cone on its head. Miley is impressed by how good Kenichi is at treating animals and asks if he's a doctor. He laughs and says he just knows first aid. To thank him, Miley goes hunting and brings back birds, which Kenichi grills for dinner. Afterward, Miley asks to stay the night, saying the bobcat is more important than her work. Kenichi agrees, but there's only one bed. Miley suggests they share. A few days later, the bobcat is back on its paws, full of energy, and jumping on Kenichi's stomach to wake him up. A painful alarm clock. But Kenichi is just glad it's better. After taking off its cone, he sends it back into the wild to live its best life. With the bobcat drama behind him, Kenichi turns his attention to farming. He's got the tools, seedling, and ambition, but hauling water from the river for his crops? Hard pass. A well with a pump is the obvious solution, but he's too tired to deal with it today, so he crashes for the night. The next morning, Kenichi tackles the well project. He takes a break from his stall, drills into the ground, and installs an electric pump. Instant water on demand. That's when Primula shows up, uninvited but concerned because he didn't open his shop. Apparently, Miley spilled the beans about his log cabin. She's impressed by all he's built but can't stop eyeing the giant excavator. To dodge questions, Kenichi claims it's his summoned familiar. Now she thinks he's a magician and promises to keep his magic a secret. Since the city gates are closed, Primula decides to stay the night despite Kenichi warning there's only one bed. She notices the bath and asks to try it. After her bath, Primula falls in love with the warm bathrobe Kenichi gives her and begs to buy it. He caves and agrees to sell her a couple. She's convinced Kenichi has the potential to be the greatest merchant in the kingdom. But he shuts that idea down. He just wants a quiet life without nobles sniffing around. Primula promises to help him stay under the radar, but she still ends up sharing his bed for the night, though Kenichi learns from Miley's visit and decides to buy a second bed to keep things proper. Meanwhile, trouble's brewing at an outlaw camp where Shaga takes on a mysterious job that could mean bad news later. The next morning, Kenichi walks Primula home and chats with Mo about selling those bathrobes. Mo's interested, but when Kenichi brings up selling spicy items, Mo shuts it down fast. Margaret interrupts with accounting ledgers, and Mo explains he's switching to the Empire's new double-entry bookkeeping system. Kenichi is shocked this accounting method is straight out of Japan. It gets even weirder when Mo shows him a pitcher pump, another invention too advanced for this world. Kenichi realizes someone else from Japan might be in the Empire, and they're making waves. Over the next few days, Primula starts visiting Kenichi regularly. On one special visit, she mentions she's going on a supply run and won't be around for a while. The next morning, Kenichi gets a surprise visit from a knight, Norse Ball, the guy who bought a sword from him earlier. Norse was sent to investigate reports of a strange old man in the woods, but since he knows Kenichi, he assures him there's no trouble. Before leaving, Norse shares some juicy gossip. A mage in the Empire created mayonnaise and defeated a dragon with it. Kenichi immediately realizes this has to be another Japanese transplant and feels like he's seriously falling behind. And that's how episode 3 ends. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what's next.